Kathleen Parker, who's with the Washington Post, wrote this column today. And when these people just gonna realize that these ideas are stupid? This is the headline of her piece. For the country's sake, Vice President Harris should step aside. Kathleen Parker, for me, ain't the brightest bulb in a dark room. But at some point, Diambi, when are these dumbasses gonna realize, one, she ain't going nowhere, Biden ain't going nowhere, she ain't going nowhere, and if the Democrats tried to replace Kamala Harris, they are guaranteeing they gonna lose in November. I just think these columns and these discussions are literally some of the dumbest stuff I've ever heard.
Well, listen, I just think it's just so cavalier how people feel like they can just tell a black woman what she ought to do, that she should not aspire to be anything. She shouldn't have ambition. She should step aside, because certainly the same thing was said to her when they were running the first time, that she shouldn't be the pick, that she should, go to be a Supreme Court justice, do something else, don't do this. And so I think this is just the latest in a litany of efforts to try to tell this woman, this black woman, what she ought to be doing. And listen, these people might as well just kick rocks with open-toed shoes, because she's not doing any of the above. And I think, as you said, Roland, what would this mean for the Democratic Party when you talk about black women and their voter turnout? Even the ones who might not be wild about Kamala Harris would definitely read this in all the negative light, and they would get all the smoke come November from black women in particular for trying this move. This is ridiculous.
And this is what I just really crack up here, Michael and Matt. Go to my iPad. This is what she actually puts in the lead. The Democratic Party's indulgence of identity politics has proved successful in building a diverse organization, but its strategy of courting and pandering to minority voters is the road to ruin. So she goes, in 2020, Joe Biden's promise to tap a woman as his vice president, along with Representative James E. Clyburn's election-altering endorsement in South Carolina, paved Biden's way to 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue. His history-making selection of the telegenic Kamala D. Harris might prove to be his downfall in 2024, and he has enough fall downs to make voters worry. Harris's resume was impressive. A former California Attorney General, blah, 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 blah. But her evolving beliefs undercut that appeal, blah, 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 blah. Here's what I find to be real funny, Michael. They put identity politics in the cover. I'm sorry. Raise your hand if you were around for the 2008 presidential election. Mm-hmm. Do y'all recall how many people said Obama needed to pick a white guy? Does everybody remember when they said Obama needed to pick a white man who could talk to white folks in the Rust Belt? Do y'all remember when they said Obama should pick a white man with foreign policy experience because he didn't have any? And he picked Joe Biden. See, I love it when white people like Kathleen Parker act like identity politics ain't never happened with white people. It happens all the time. Whiteness is an identity, and whiteness has always been in identity politics.
Yeah, yes, it has, Roland. Roland, this goes back to the conversation we had back on Friday, February 23rd, when you interviewed Jennifer Rubin about her op-ed in the Washington Post dealing with Kamala Harris being an asset, undervalued or underused asset to President Biden. And we talked about the accomplishments of Vice President Kamala Harris, whether it's the having having a record number of tie-breaking votes, presiding over the Senate, whether it's getting the $1.9 trillion American Rescue Plan passed, because if it had not been for her tie-breaking vote in the Senate, it would not have passed, or her tie-breaking vote when it came to passing the Inflation Reduction Act that no Republicans in the Senate voted for, or presiding over the first ever Office of Gun Violence Reduction, et cetera. So we talked about in that segment how people fear her becoming president in 2028. People fear that. They see her as a threat. So they're writing all these hit pieces on her, and these hit pieces, these BS hit pieces, continue. So, I'm not that I've probably read stuff by Kathleen Parker in the past because I read the Washington Post every day. But you're going to continue to have these unqualified white people putting this nonsense out against Vice President Kamala Harris. So we need to fight back and vote for Biden-Harris in 2024, crush the MAGA Republicans, crush Donald Trump, and continue to fight for policies that are good for African Americans, and policies that are good for African Americans are good for America in general.
And this is the thing that I crack up here, Matt. She goes, Harris ended her campaign in December 2019, citing a lack of financial resources. Next thing we knew, she was moving to the Naval Observatory. She was a colossal failure as border czar, a position she held briefly and otherwise seemed to have gone undercover. Kathleen, are you that dumb? Are you that dumb? She writes, whatever the reasons, it is seen that Harris's role was to be quiet, lest she embarrass her boss with her sometimes inane, rambling remarks and a laugh that erupts from nowhere about nothing obvious to others. I do, however, relish the thought of her face-to-face with Vladimir Putin and suddenly cackling at a linchpin moment during nuclear arms discussions. Now, so let me go ahead and unpack this. First of all, this is an insulting and revolting column from a rather unremarkable white woman.
Yep.
Let's just be clear.
Mm-hmm.
Kathleen, do you remember, because I was there, when CNN picked you and Elliot Spitzer to host a show that was one of the most awful shows I have ever witnessed? And that decision led to CNN firing John Klein as president of CNN US. You were horrible. Like, not kind of horrible. You absolutely sucked. 2, you have to suck as a columnist, because for you to suggest that she's been quiet is interesting, because she was literally just overseas meeting with foreign leaders. She's traveled the world, has been engaged in public policy. See, this is what happens, Matt, and this is how mainstream media works. So what they do is they establish a narrative, and it's, oh, she's awful. She's been doing nothing. She's been quiet. I've even heard some black people with media platforms parrot this, oh, they've been hiding her. Well, damn, if they've been hiding her, they've been doing an awful job of hiding her. And second, here's the other deal. Don't nobody pay attention to the vice president. Obama never put Biden out as much as he does Harris. This is the crap that you keep seeing, because it is all about how do we keep tearing her down and to what Michael said, continue to reinforce the narrative that she's awful. And so what do you see right here? She writes in here, every honest person knows he's not in top form. A recent New York Times poll found that 73% of registered voters believe Biden is too old, and blah, 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 blah. And then she goes, at the start of Biden's term, I was pulling for Harris to do well. She had pizzazz and a reputation for being a tough prosecutor. She had moxie and swagger, and she leaned centrist. There was reason for hope, blah, 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 and all this sort of nonsense. Her performance as second in command has been disappointing, to say the least. Americans have taken note. No, Kathleen. They've taken note because people like you keep writing the bullshit lies, and it creates a narrative that she's been missing in action and she's horrible when, again, let's see. Biden under Obama. First of all, what the hell did Mike Pence do under Trump? What the hell? Okay, Cheney, we know the kind of power he had because Bush was portrayed as being stupid. What the hell? Do anybody remember really, the only thing that I can remember that Al Gore did as Clinton's vice president was go on David Letterman's show and bust the ashtray to show how government was running inefficiently. Let's see here. I have no idea what the hell Dan Quayle did. I do not remember what the hell George H.W. Bush did in 8 years under Reagan. Anybody can remember? Okay. Who the hell was Carter's vice president? Oh, damn, that's right. That was Mondale. Let's go before that. Who the hell was Nixon's vice president?
Ford.
Spiro T. Agnew. Well, we know he resigned because
Spiro T. Agnew, he got indicted. Okay, Go before that. Who's LBJ's vice president?
Oh,
was it Humphrey?
Yeah, I think it was.
Yeah,
I think it was Humphrey. Yeah.
What can anybody cite for me the accomplishments of Hubert Humphrey as vice president? Before that, here you had LBJ, who was a Senate majority leader, and JFK didn't call upon him at all. Okay, before that, who the hell was Eisenhower's vice president? Nixon. Mm-hmm. What did he do? Can't remember. Before that, who was Truman's vice president? I don't even remember.
Barkley.
Who?
I just remember
Charles Barkley. No, I'm just kidding.
Hold on, y'all. I'm being straight.
Yeah,
Harry.
Hey, but I remember Barkley.
Truman's
talked about a lot.
Harry Truman's VP. Oh, I am not lying, y'all. I did not know who the hell this is. His name was Alvin William Barkley. Mm-hmm. I literally, this is no lie. Matt Lav, I'm not, y'all. I'm not lying. I know. I literally did not know who the hell Harry Truman's vice president was. Okay, before Truman, FDR. Truman was FDR's vice president. That's how Truman became president when FDR died.
FDR died. Right. People don't.
So this is how dumb. President. This is how dumb all of this is, Matt. They somehow want to act like that Vice President Kamala Harris is just so. Oh my God! In the history of vice presidents, because she's so awful. Vice presidents have one job: to sit there and hope nothing happens to the president.
And preside over the Senate.
Okay, fine. Preside over the Senate, but I'm just being. But they don't even preside over the Senate.
Well, yeah, you know.
No, they don't.
Tie-breaking votes in the cast tie-breaking votes in.
That's Senate. It. So the VP don't preside over the Senate. Preside over the Senate means she pack a lunch and go to the Senate every day and preside. No, she doesn't. She only goes to the Senate when it's time to break a vote. That's it.
Right.
That's the job of the vice president. But this is what they do, and this, Matt, I believe, is why the polling numbers are what they are, because of nonsensical columns like what Kathleen Parker has written. Go ahead.
The goalpost always moves when it's a black person kicking the field goal. We know that. That has been shown to us since time immemorial. We see it in every iteration of any conversation about a black person. I mean, even in this very broadcast, look back to Fani Willis and the scrutiny that she got being a black woman in that position. We know this to be true. And what I thought was particularly problematic about the snippets you showed is words matter. I mean, she tried to reduce Vice President Harris to, quote, being telegenic, which means she looks good on TV. Not that she was in the Senate, not that she was the attorney general of the largest state in the country, not that she was known to be an intrepid prosecutor, not any of the things that, even if people don't like her, they can't say objectively qualified her for this position. But instead she's, quote, telegenic, and her, quote, ramblings are inane. Those are the kinds of things you say when you want clickbait, not when you're doing an actual appraisal of a job that doesn't really have any kind of job description. That's what makes this so problematic. It's a hit piece because you're attacking a person for apparently not meeting the metrics of a job where there are no metrics. So how do you say you're failing at something where we have no rubric upon which to determine whether you're failing? That is because you don't like the person in the post, and that's because you want to attack her as a woman, as a black woman, and as someone who is a part of this administration. So I think you've already covered it very robustly, but this is what we know to be the case. The goalposts always move when a black person is kicking the field goal.
So let me just close this out very simply with this right here. To Kathleen Parker, you have the audacity to talk about identity politics. That's what you are. You're a white woman who's a columnist with the Post who literally isn't interesting. You were a failure on television. That's you. You were awful. And your column is equally awful. And I'm still trying to figure out who the hell Alban Barkley is. All right.
For this 10-week online history course, go to our website, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. Okay. There's a 10-week online history course called Ancient Kemet, the Moors, and the Ma'afa, Understanding the Transatlantic Slave Trade, what they didn't teach you in school. I teach the class on Saturdays, 2 p.m. to 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Our next classes are Saturday, March 9th, Saturday, March 16th, March 23rd, and March 30th. Okay. And then we have a few more classes after that. The class is on sale, $80, regularly $130. We do the sessions live. All the sessions are archived and recorded. You can go back and watch this anytime. So even after the course is over with, you can go back and watch the entire class. Okay. And we instead of 10 sessions, we're going to do at least 11, possibly 12. The course outline, the lesson plans for all 10 classes or 10 plus classes are laid out here. And I'll go through and update it periodically because we add a few additional subjects. But we take you through our history. We deal with thousands of years of history and what leads up to the transatlantic slave trade taking place. So we deal with archaeological discoveries that have come out in the last 10, 20. So we deal with Egypt on the Potomac and how the layout of Washington, D.C. is based upon ancient African principles coming out of ancient Kemet, ancient Egypt. Kemet, one of the original names for Egypt, meaning land of the blacks. We look at the African origins of Star Wars and the Assyrian drama. There's an excerpt of an interview that I did with Professor Kaba Hiawatha Kamene, where we look at this information. We look at the Hannibal Barca and the Punic Wars, okay, and especially the Battle of Cannae, 216 BC. We look at Hannibal crossing the Alps, crossing the Pyrenees, 219 BC, but the Battle of Cannae, 216 BC. The Battle of Zama, 202 BC, where Hannibal Barca is defeated by Publius Cornelius Scipio. And Publius Cornelius Scipio takes the surname Africanus after he defeats Hannibal Barca at the Battle of Zama in 202 BC. Africa is not named after a Roman general. The Roman general took the surname Africanus after he defeated Hannibal Barca. And we know that Africanus is Latin, meaning belonging to Africa. It's Latin, meaning belonging to Africa. We look at the 800-year occupation of the Europes, of the Africans known as the Moors, who take the teachings from the Nile Valley region of Africa into Europe. And this is going to bring Europe out of the Dark Ages. Okay. And we see the rise of Spanish conquest. We look at Christopher Columbus, and Columbus is essential to the expansion of the transatlantic slave trade and the exploitation of indigenous people and the exploitation of African people also. Okay. So we go through and look at this history chronologically. We also look at the fake Willie Lynch letter, 1712. Willie Lynch never historically existed. I wish we would just throw the Willie Lynch letter in the garbage can where it belongs. It's ahistorical. There are words in the Willie Lynch letter that didn't even exist in the early 1700s. Okay, the sentence structure, the syntax is not what they is not coming from England. That's 20th century sentence structure in their words from the 20th century, from the industrial and the automotive industry, things like that, that are in that letter. That was written about 1970 by Dr. Kwabena Ashanti, who's come out and admitted he wrote the Willie Lynch letter, and is Professor Manu Pim, who I'll be interviewing later this month, who exposed Dr. Kwabena Ashanti as the author of the Willie Lynch letter. It's a fraud. Dr. Kwabena Ashanti meant well, but I think it's done more harm than good. Okay, so you can register for that course at our website, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. All right, let's continue here. And I posted the information here in the thread of the broadcast as well. You can also email us through the website if you have any questions. Right here where it says contact the African History Network, you can email us through the website right there. You can email us also, okay? And if you want to support us through PayPal or Cash App, let's see, we have a preview of the class here, and we have information for the African History Network show, Sundays, 9 p.m. to 11 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, broadcasts on my social media platforms. And we have our audio podcast on iHeartRadio, iTunes, Castbox, FM Player, TuneIn. It's about 9 different audio podcast platforms, okay? And you can support us also through PayPal and Cash App right here. $ the AHN show through Cash App, $ the AHN app. Click on the link here, takes you to our Cash App QR code. And I had to create this graphic because some people set up fake African History Network Cash App accounts. So these other ones out here are fake ones. Our tag is $ the AHN show, SHOW. And it may show my picture when you go to it also. But we have, click here on the link. We have the actual QR code. And this is our, you can support us through PayPal also, paypal.me.